Mr. David Leonhardt, columnist for the New York Times and 2011 Pulitzer Prize winner, is our next recipient. The citation will be read by Dr. John Strange's university professor. Mr. Leonhardt, please come forward to center stage to join Father Maher.
While there may be no fixed or eternal path to success, the career of David Leonhardt demonstrates that the march is made easier by merging talent and ambition with excitement and hard work. By age 38, Mr. Leonhardt had already scaled the heights of high-level journalism, serving as the Washington bureau chief of the New York Times and winning a Pulitzer Prize for public affairs commentary. At age 40, he had become the editor of the Upshot, an online news and data imaging portal on the Times website. His column, A Convergence of Explanatory and Data Journalism, endeavors to present complicated economic and social issues to readers in a new and visually attractive format. In its first year, the Upshot made a significant mark, bringing in 5% of overall traffic to the Times website, despite employing only a fraction of the publication's writers. It also generated 2 of the 20 most viewed stories on the Times website in 2014, demonstrating a clear public appetite for the Upshot's unique approach to news. Showing little patience for what he calls the infallible journalism of the past, Mr. Leonhardt insists that people are too smart to accept something based simply on authority. The public needs to know, and where graphically demonstrable, to see the limitations of the preferred solutions to economic and social problems. Mr. Leonhardt is untiring as a writer of his own columns and as an editor who selects clear-headed writers for important subjects. His goal is to enable readers to understand the news and, by extension, the world of big, complicated topics that can no longer remain the private domain of experts. His series on the middle class, so often the subject of perplexing public discussion about its size and decline, is just one example of this successful approach. A native of New York City, Mr. Leonhardt attended Yale University, graduating with a degree in applied mathematics. Before joining the Times in 1999, he worked for Business Week magazine and the Washington Post. 3 times a Pulitzer Prize finalist, Mr. Leonhardt has been recognized with numerous journalistic honors for the outstanding quality of his writing. In April 2011, he was awarded the Pulitzer for his graceful yet critical penetration into the thicket of Americans' economic problems, from federal budget deficits to health care reform. Mr. Leonhardt's columns are widely read and praised by educators, civic leaders, and policymakers, both in the public and private sphere. His energy and enthusiasm for his work have distinguished him as one of the ablest practitioners of the new journalism. In light of his exceptional professional accomplishments and commitment to demystifying politics, economics, healthcare, and recently higher education, Niagara University is pleased to bestow honoris causa the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters on David Leonhardt.
Thank you, Dr. Stranges, and congratulations, Mr. Leonhardt. It is now my pleasure to call on Dr. Leonhardt, who will deliver our commencement address. Doctor?
Thank you all so much. Thank you for that very generous reading. Thank you, Father Maher. Thank you, Professor Strange. It's an honor to share the stage with the Monsignor. It's an honor to share the stage with all of the trustees and other guests and to share this auditorium with you. Whether I'm dining alone with my wife or sitting around with my closest childhood friends, I am often the only adult in the room without a graduate degree. Thank you, Niagara, for changing that situation. Ours is a society that too often celebrates the mundane. We feel the need to post a photograph on the internet when we catch a fish or become 1 year older. Our business executives pay themselves millions of dollars a year for average performance. Our athletes preen when they gain 4 yards on the football field. Our journalists, we journalists, retweet other journalists praising our stories, and then those other journalists do the same. We would all do well to raise the bar for what is deserving of celebration. But today clears that bar. It clears it with room to spare. Today is not a celebration of the mundane. And it is not merely celebration of a life marker, of the real start of adulthood for many of you. Today is a celebration of a true accomplishment. You, the Niagara class of 2015, are moments away from being college graduates. Before you disperse to eat with your family and friends, before you scatter from this beautiful patch of our country, before you start worrying about what the next phase of life will bring, I urge you to reflect on what you have done. What you have done is not automatic or anywhere near automatic. It is not akin to ascending from grade school to middle school or from high school to college. Nationwide, of all the students who begin a 4-year college, close to half do not graduate, do not get to where you are today. And that half includes many talented people, the vast majority of whom are capable of getting where you are today, of earning a bachelor's degree. But they are waylaid by circumstance, by finances, by colleges that do not hold up their end of the bargain. Our political system, from President Obama to governors both Republican and Democrat, to college administrators themselves, is rightly paying more attention to the national dropout epidemic. You have survived that epidemic. And today is worth celebrating not merely because of that fact. It is worth celebrating because your graduation matters. You are receiving much more than the proverbial sheepskin. You are receiving a diploma that signifies, for most of you, a better life than you would have had without it. Why should you be confident about that? Look at the evidence. I'll start with the material evidence, because I'm guessing many of you and your parents have material matters at least partly on your minds. I remember I sat where you were sitting today at my college graduation 21 years ago. I had about $25,000 in student loans, adjusting for inflation, and I had no job. But I found a job, and you will too. Do you want to guess what the unemployment rate is for 4-year college graduates in their early 20s? It's 4.4%. Go a little higher up and look at people in their mid to late 20s. Do you want to guess what the unemployment rate for that group is? I think most Americans would get this badly wrong, and we in the media are partly to blame for that. It is 2%. 2%. For people in the same age group without a bachelor's degree, the unemployment rate is 8.5%. And these college graduates are not generally working in dead-end jobs they could have gotten without their degree. The pay gap between college graduates and everyone else is near an all-time high. Now, I don't want to suggest that you're on easy street now. You're not. You will face challenges. Our economy is still not fully recovered from a terrible financial crisis. It has long-term challenges. College graduates have their struggles too. But you can't change the condition of the American economy. You don't get to choose which economy you graduate into. There is no better step that you can take, since you can't choose the economy that you are graduating into, than to earn a college degree. In the academic journal Science, David Autor, who's one of the country's leading labor economists, recently calculated the cost of college, taking into account tuition, books, financial aid, the money you could have been making over the last 4 or 5 or more years, and the money you spent to go to college. What did Professor Author decide the true cost of college was? Negative $500,000. Not going to college will cost you about $500,000. I know that repaying college loans is no fun. I still remember writing the checks. But it's better than not having a degree. Statistics like these sometimes inspire skepticism, I realize. Skeptics wonder if colleges really deserve credit for the happy trends I've just described. Mightn't those graduates, smart as ambitious as you are, do almost as well regardless of whether they had gone to college? In a word, no. And it's not only because of the books that you read here, the papers you wrote, the equations you solved, and the experiments you conducted. They mattered because knowledge matters and skill matters. But college also forces you to learn another skill. It forces you to complete an obstacle course of life. It's an obstacle course that for most people is fundamentally different from high school and than from anything else you have done before. You have far more autonomy. You must make many more decisions. You have many more chances to fail. And you do fail in many little ways. Once you do, you need to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and find another way to solve the problem in front of you. You need to rethink the problem and improvise. As an aside, for anyone in the audience today who's part of the way through that obstacle course, even if it's been years since you were sitting in a class, I would encourage you to use the pageantry and the excitement of today as an inspiration to consider going back and finishing your own obstacle course. It's never too late. Learning how to complete such an obstacle course, gaining the confidence that you can complete one, sometimes brilliantly, sometimes just across the line, brings even more than any book or any problem set does. When you think of college in these terms, when you think of it giving you a lifelong confidence that you can solve problems, even if you fail along the way, even though you will fail along the way, you understand why college matters. You understand why when researchers have compared high school graduates with similar profiles, similar GPAs, similar SAT scores, and looked at the ones who went to college and the ones who didn't, the ones who went to college have done so much better. The ones who graduated from college have done so much better than those who didn't. You understand why college graduates are healthier and live longer. You understand why they are more engaged parents. You understand why they report being more satisfied with their lives. Now, I've already told you today that you deserve to be proud, and you do. You also deserve to be humble, and I'm guessing most of you know that. You didn't get here alone. You finished the obstacle course with the help of your professors here at Niagara, and we honor them today too. You finished it with help from friends, siblings, and from your fellow citizens, all of whom have invested in you. Of course, I've left one group of people off of that list. You finished it thanks to the people who raised you, your parents, and I use that word broadly. Your parents, your step-parents, your grandparents, an uncle, an aunt, a neighbor. Some of them have dreamed about today for years, and they've not just dreamed about it, they've done something about it. They've changed diapers and cleaned up spills. They can still remember them as if they happened a few weeks ago. They helped you with your homework and they drove you to practice. They've been your biggest fan. They've wrongfully accused you of various things, and in return, you've wrongfully accused them of various things. You were here because you did it, and you were here because they helped you do it. On a day when we are recognizing you, the Niagara class of 2015, I invite you to stand along with me and recognize the people who helped you get here today. I invite you to turn and look at them and thank them for what they have done. Now that you are about to be college graduates, I would also invite you to think about your role in helping others complete the obstacle course. To honor what others have done for you by doing the same. The political scientist Robert Putnam has recently written a book that he titled Our Kids, and the title is a lament. Decades ago, he argues, our country thought of its kids collectively as our kids. As a society, we invested in them as if they were our own. A century ago, when high school was the frontier of mass education and the ticket to the middle class, we built thousands of high schools around the country. They were expensive. Some people here and in Europe poo-pooed them as training grounds for the elite. Not everyone needs to go to high school, the critics said. Sound familiar? But we built those high schools, and in the process, we built the most educated country in the world and the most prosperous middle class in the world. Today, in a more complex, globalized economy in which we are much richer than a century ago, high school is no longer the ticket to the middle class, and no amount of wishing it otherwise will make it so. College is. It is worth remembering that there are thousands of 22-year-olds and 23-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds who have the ability to be attending a college graduation ceremony like this one, this weekend, and who are not. They are not in no small part because we have not made the same commitment to the new frontier of mass education that our country did a century ago. For too many people, college is not just an obstacle course, as it should be, but an impossible obstacle course, full of confusing financial aid forms, retired classes that aren't available, and unsolvable conflicts with their job. That's why so many students who come from modest backgrounds and thrive in high school nonetheless fail to complete college. That's a hard situation to accept when you think about all of the benefits that college brings, and when you think about our national identity, the American identity. So on a day when we are celebrating your accomplishments, and celebrating everyone else here and not here who enabled your accomplishments, I leave you with one bit of advice. It comes from the Bible, but it does not depend on your faith. Replenish the earth. Whatever path you choose in the years ahead, look for ways to bring others onto that path. History shows that the benefits of education are not mutually exclusive. They are the opposite. Societies with more educated people have better functioning political systems. They are healthier and wealthier. They invent new gizmos and new cures. And societies that give everyone a chance to use their talents, that give everyone the chance to sit where you are fairer. It draws on the best of the Vincentian tradition and the best of the American tradition to devote yourself, in part, in the coming years, to building that better society. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this day, your day, with you.